Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for another edition of our webinar series, Inside Immigration. Today, we're joined by panelists and associate at Green & Spiegel, Ellie Slavens and Michael Hughes. Please feel free to ask any questions via the pop-up text bar on the right side of your screen, and we'll do our best to address the questions at the end of the webinar. If the panelists do not get to your question, you can contact them through the information provided on screen now. And with that being said, I'm going to hand things over to our panelists to take it away.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Inside Immigration. Myself and Ellie are going to be going through some of the updates we've seen from IRCC and from Service Canada over the past month, and then we can answer any questions that you've got at the end of the agenda. So I guess to start, one of the big updates that we've seen recently has come from ESDC, Service Canada, that really impacts the temporary foreign worker program and the employer's ability to apply for labor market impact assessments, specifically the validity and the duration that an LMIA can now support a work permit for. So previously, labor market impact assessments, which is required for a lot of permit applications to work in Canada, typically the maximum duration that an employer could secure a labor market impact assessment for was 2 years, meaning that the foreign worker that they're hoping to hire could work in Canada for up to a 2-year period. That has recently changed. Now the maximum that employers can request is an LMIA with a 3-year duration. So the foreign worker can now apply for a work permit that is of a 3-year duration. In addition to that, previously we've seen the validity of LMIAs. It was 9 months, meaning the foreign worker had a 9-month period from the time that the LMIA was issued to actually apply for their work permit. So that too has changed for the better. Now LMIAs are being issued with a validity period of 18 months. So there's an 18-month period now that employers or temporary foreign workers can apply for their work permit. So both really great updates from ESDC Service Canada with respect to LMIAs for temporary foreign workers who do require a positive LMIA to support their work permit application.
And I would add to Michael's overview there that for applications that we've had in process for an LMIA, Service Canada has come back to the employers and given them the opportunity to provide justification or rationale for changing their in-process request from 2 years to 3 years. And they've been fairly accommodating with doing that. The other thing is that an employer would still need to justify that 3-year duration in their request. So we would be putting in our submissions information about why the 3 years is needed, because if it isn't needed, of course, they're not going to grant an LMIA that will support a 3-year work permit. But generally, most employers are able to explain that this is an indefinite offer that they are making, and the business need is that they foresee having this person in their organization and keeping stability of employing the new workers for that full 3-year period. So it's generally something that we can now just incorporate into our submissions. In the past, we were sort of getting 3-year LMIAs on an ad hoc basis, but mostly for high-level executives and when we had made a special request. So this is now standard, and it's going to be both for high-wage LMIA applications and global talent stream LMIA applications, which means on the global talent stream side of things, instead of negotiating a labor market benefits plan that will span a 2-year duration where the employer would be checked in at the 12 and 24-month marks, the labor market benefits plan is now going to cover a 3-year period. And currently check-ins will still be every 12 months, but we expect that frequency may become more spread out just from the comments and feedback that we've had from officers. It's looking like they may decrease the frequency of the LMBP reviews for employers because of the administrative burden that it takes to check in with employers every 12 months. They're very backlogged on those, and so we have a lot of clients who who haven't even had a 12-month check-in, and they're at like the end of their 24-month commitment period. And so they're renegotiating their LMBPs and they've never been checked in on their commitments before. So that's sort of great news, both on the global talent stream LMIA front and the high wage LMIA front. I think we should move on to our second topic.
Yeah, so updates to the Canada-Ukraine Authorization for Emergency Travel. This is a program that has developed since the end of February as a result of the conflict in Ukraine. So IRCC has developed this program that is meant to allow Ukrainian citizens the opportunity to apply for temporary resident visas to travel to Canada on an expedited basis, knowing that Ukrainians are fleeing the country and moving elsewhere. It also allows Ukrainian citizens to apply for an open work permit. So the open work permit can be issued for up to 3 years and allow Ukrainian citizens to come and work temporarily in Canada for that period. Lately, in terms of updates, what we've seen is because Ukrainians are visa required foreign nationals, for the most part, they are not exempt from the requirement to obtain a visa, which is required to first travel to Canada and to provide biometrics. But we have seen some flexibility on IRCC's side in that the department is issuing what they're calling foil-less visas, understanding that, you know, for a lot of Ukrainians, it is difficult right now to actually provide passports to a visa application center to have the passport physically affixed with a visa counterfoil. So just last week, it was announced that certain Ukrainian nationals who will be traveling to Canada from specific countries, mainly in Central and Eastern Europe, will not require a physical counterfoil in their visa. They'll be issued a foil-less visa, which is going to be an electronic document, and allow them to travel to Canada for a single journey just using that document.
And we have represented a few applicants in our office with applications for these emergency travel visas. Unfortunately, what we have seen on the few matters that we've submitted is the passport requests have been quite slow to be issued through the representatives portal. So, you know, it may be true that some of the rumors about using a representative might slow down the process, because from the experience that we were sort of hearing on some of the CLE seminars that we've been on, we've heard other practitioners saying that the applicants are getting requests very quickly for their passports to be submitted in those situations where they're not going to be issuing a foil-less counterfoil or a foil-less visa. So yeah, we do have a few cases pending that seem to be taking longer than the 14-day standard that was sort of promised. So I guess we can just keep a close watch on those and see if anything improves with that situation. And then on the COVID travel update side of things, the current order in council is in place until May 31st. So there's only really been one mid-month change since the implementation of the latest OIC April 1st, and that was that on April 25th, the requirement for children ages 5 to 11 who are fully vaccinated, they do not need to provide a pre-entry test, which they did need to do from April 1st to 25th. Is that right, Michael? Did I have that right? Yeah. So now they're,
I think
sorry, unvaccinated, accompanying a vaccinated parent between ages 5 and 11. They can be now exempt from the pre-departure test, because the rest of the family had already been exempted from the pre-departure test April 1st. That was the implementation date of the new OIC, right? Yeah. So that was the only sort of mid-month change in the travel rules. It's good to see people not needing that pre-departure test now because it was very costly and a bit of a nightmare for everyone. So yeah, I mean, we continue to have randomized arrival testing at the airports, and so that's still in place. And I don't think we have any updates other than I guess we would be expecting, you know, new rules and a new OAC to come in towards the end of May, and we'll see what those look like, you know, in the coming months.
So on our next topic, IRCC just last Friday released updates to its ministerial instructions, which instruct officers to refuse to process certain work permit applications. So the ministerial instructions are specific to individuals who are applying to work in Canada as a caregiver or in-home support worker. Previously, the ministerial instructions were initially issued back in 2019, but there's been a lot of gray areas or areas open to interpretation. The last Friday, IRCC released this update hoping to clarify certain parts of those ministerial instructions. And essentially what it's done is it's made it more difficult for people hoping to apply for a work permit to work in Canada, as I said, as a caregiver or an in-home support worker. Essentially now, anyone who does not currently have authorization to work in Canada already
or to study cannot apply for an LMIA-based work permit to work in either of these occupations. So if you if you are looking to work as a caregiver or an in-home support worker, or if you're hoping to hire somebody to work in one of these roles, it's very important that that individual who's going to be applying already has authorization to work or study in Canada. Otherwise, IRCC is very likely going to refuse to process that work permit application, even if the prospective employer has already obtained the positive LMIA. Yeah, so that means anyone who may have been a caregiver before on an LMIA-based work permit, or been on an open work permit and had, let's say, an issue with a pending PR application, if they fall out of status and they're in their restoration period, we were able to sort of save those people before when we had the public policy that allowed the restoration period to be extended during COVID. And we had some limited success with getting people's status restored to that of a worker on an LMIA-based caregiver work permit. But that loop seems to have been closed because really the instructions are quite black and white now that, you know, if you do not have lawful authorization to work or to work without a work permit or to study, you know, no LMIA-based caregiver work permit for you. So, I mean, there's still a little bit of gray because it talks about using the outside of Canada work permit application form. And, you know, right now people can apply from inside of Canada under the visitor to worker, also COVID public policy, where they would be using the in Canada work permit application form as opposed to an outside of Canada work permit application form. But I just, you know, it appears that IRCC would still refuse applications for anyone applying to try and switch from visitor to worker from inside Canada, given this new ministerial instruction. So I think those people are pretty much out of luck, and their only option would be the PR pathway for caregivers, you know, that has limited spots and opens at the beginning of the year. So that is not great news for some caregivers who will really sort of be stuck between a rock and a hard place, and we'll have to figure out a situation for those individuals. We have a few files like that in our office currently that we're trying to strategize on. And let's see, next updates. Oh, express entry draws are anticipated to resume in the summer, right? That was the announcement, Michael.
in July.
So that would be good news, and that comes along with an update on the front that postgraduate work permits will be able to be extended without an LMIA, similar to what they did last year. They allowed postgraduate work permit holders an additional 18 months to be able to, get their situation in order in terms of, being in the express entry pool and getting invited to apply. So we're looking forward to the details on that to be released shortly, because we do also have, a fair number of people holding postgraduate work permits who either would need an LMIA to extend their status or would need to be able to apply for another postgraduate work permit. The question is just whether somebody who took advantage of that additional 18 months, let's say, when it was allowed last year, can do so again. And those details remain to be released with the new, program criteria, I guess, for an extension of postgraduate work permit with the special measures that are coming into place to help students who can't get PR and transition to PR, or at least transition to an open work permit, bridging, because they haven't been able to be invited since there have been no rounds of invitations. Michael, did we want to touch on any other updates, or does that sort of bring us to the end of our overview of the updates and we can move on to kind of discussions and questions?
Yeah, I think that brings us to the end of all the major updates we've seen over the past few weeks. Any questions from anybody for us?
Stephen, where would we see the questions if there were any?
Hey, Ellie, hey, Michael. I can read out the questions for you. There's two that have come in. One is from Robbie Bush. It is, for the sponsored parent category, should we apply now for 2023?
Parental sponsorship?
Yeah, for the sponsored parent category, should we apply now for 2023?
Is that open yet, Michael? I don't think so.
I don't think it's open.
Not open yet? No. Okay, and then the next question is from Susan Hughes. When do you think the US will not require a rapid antigen test prior to entering the US?
Well, that's like US immigration rules, so wouldn't be able to sort of predict or comment on that, but hopefully the US will sort of, follow the lead that other countries are sort of doing. So I don't really know the answer to that, though, at the moment, no.
Okay, one final question. Which one is the fastest student PR pathway in Canada?
The fastest what?
The fastest student pathway to permanent residency in Canada.
It would be Canadian experience class, in times of regular processing standards, but because IRCC is trying to clear its backlog of applications in the Canadian experience class, or express entry, basically PR-based applicants. So they, I think, cleared down from, there was some numbers that were just released. What was it? It was like, their inventory, I think, is down to like 48,000 or something from maybe 110,000 or 120,000. They've cut it in half essentially. So they're hoping to continue to cut that number down and further, so that when they do resume the invitations that they're anticipating in July of this year, that they can adhere to their 6-month processing standard for express entry. So that means, these students accumulate the necessary work experience to get their 1 year of work in Canada in a skilled occupation. They qualify for Canadian experience class-based permanent residence and create an express entry profile. They receive an invitation to apply. They have their deadline to submit their electronic application, and once they submit their application, it is a 6-month processing standard, or has been in the past, and that's what IRCC wants to continue to be able to meet. And that was the reason for them pausing intake and invitations under express entry, so that they could clear their backlogs and really process those cases where they have invited people to apply once they get those invitations coming in.
Excellent, thanks, Ellie. So stay tuned for summer 2022, exciting things ahead. So that's all the time we have today, folks. So I'd like to thank everyone for attending today's webinar, and a special thanks to Ellie and Michael for sharing their expert knowledge today. If anyone didn't get their questions answered, you can reach out to Ellie or Michael. The details are found on screen now. Also, if you'd like to discuss today's topics in more detail, please reach out to Michael or Ellie. And I would encourage everyone to sign up to our alerts, follow us on social media, keep up to date with the latest developments inside Canadian immigration. Until next time, everybody, stay safe.